Welcome, everyone, to this session of Administrator Issues and Updates on April 22nd, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Schrader's on her way. There is a quorum present. Roll call. Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. All right, thank you. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Development Agency Board. Gary, would you please introduce the first agenda item for us?
Yes, Chair. You are meeting as the Development Agency Board of Directors of Clackamas County. This is an advisory board appointment for the Development Agency. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Chair, the Development Agency Budget Committee currently has one opening due to a term expiration. The committee has 10 total members with 3-year terms. The recommendation is as follows. Blaine Skohidi to a 3rd term ending June 2028. The board could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
All right. Colleagues, questions?
Move to approve the recommendation for the appointment.
I'll second.
All right. Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the appointment of Blaine Shohidi to the Development Agency Budget Committee. Commissioner West has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll now adjourn as a Development Agency Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary, what is next?
Thank you.
please?
Next is your Recovery Campus monthly update. Cindy Becker, Project Manager in the County Administration Office, will give you a quick update and then answer any questions you may have on our ongoing project with the Recovery Campus. Go ahead, please, Cindy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Becker, County Administration. This will be a very quick update since we came before you on April 10th and you approved the subrecipient agreement. So what I can tell you is that we did have a great kickoff meeting with the FORA team to really kind of figure out who's on first and just get some general questions answered. But the good news is we're starting, so that's great. And we have identified the phases. I think that was also identified in the subrecipient agreement, but I just wanted to let you know what those are. Is my mic on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And this is all part of pre-construction. There's schematic design, design development, construction documents, and permitting and bidding. And those phases will occur over the next year, starting, well, this month. And we will bring back to you after each of those phases what they are different phases of design. So the schematic is just kind of general and get feedback. Then we'll get into more detail with the design development, and then the most detail for the construction documents, which will have to be submitted. And so each of those phases will probably take about 3 to 4 months. So we're looking at a good year until all of that's done, but we'll be coming back to you as those occur to get your feedback. I did also remind the team that we need a place for pets. And so that was going to be really important. And as I mentioned before, we are going to be designing both buildings on the campus, so the whole campus, so you'll get to see what that is. And then we are also planning this summer to have a planning conversation or a policy session with you to look at the rest of the property and to see what you're looking at, because as I said, there's no wrong answer, but there are a variety of things that you could do on that property. We're also going to be rescheduling and reconvening the Good Neighbor Group. And when we met with FORA, we really want them to take that over because it needs to be between them and the neighbors. And we'll help facilitate that, but we're scheduling that. And then I'm going to be working with your policy assistants to schedule a tour of the Cherry Blossom facility in Portland. And with that, color me done unless you have questions.
All right, Commissioner West.
Thank you, Cindy. Can you update us on the zoning process and where we're at with that? Because I know we need to do a zone change.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So we were waiting for the traffic report, and it's like 50 pages. Who knew a traffic report could be that long? But anyway, it's done, and it's part of the zoning application, and I just saw a draft of the application, so we're really close to getting it submitted.
Okay, and then once it's submitted, what's next with that?
Well, it could take 3 to 6 months, DTD, depending upon what their schedules are, but yes.
Great. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just a question on the two structures, clinical and housing. Are they going to be, as far as occupancy, matched so that is it a design in which conceptually that the number of people that are being treated at the clinical also have the housing so they're on site? So it's a, I won't say one for one, but there's a method to the madness of the capacity.
Yes, Commissioner. Yeah, it's one of those balancing acts. It's more art than it is science. And so one of the things that we have at our forefront, and we know it's been an issue, is flow-through. What happens is people get backed up into care that they don't need because there isn't a place for them to go. And so the goal is to really have that flow-through as steady as possible. And so we know that, and not every person is going to need every single part of the clinical end. And so it's really a question of balancing that. But yes, that is the intent.
Okay, so conceivably then, the housing capacity will be larger than the clinical capacity.
Yes, because we're looking at about 10 beds of withdrawal management detox and about 25 beds, I think, for residential, and then about 36 beds for housing. So they'll be going through those at various stages. And then we have the outpatient services as well. And so you don't have to be in the housing to go to those outpatient services, so we're trying to organize all that.
Thank you.
Commissioner West.
Are we also showing, so we have the treatment piece, we have transitional housing, it sounds like. We also have the stabilization center close by with respite housing and stabilizing 23-hour. Also, are we talking about, or a little bit further down the care continuum, maybe you're living with peers in independent living, more apartment style, workforce, educational opportunities for people near the end of the care continuum? Are we going to see where that could be built out on the campus also?
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things, if you recall, the scattered sites that the Housing Authority owns and is selling, many of those are going to be converted to recovery housing.
Okay.
And so we're not necessarily seeing that permanent housing on the site, but the intent is to move them to other recovery housing with peers.
Okay. And one last question. And then will we see, as we phase this out, growth opportunities to further expand what the campus is able to offer?
Absolutely. As you'll see in the schematic design, it's the footprint of the recovery, the two buildings will allow space for. There'll be a good sized space for you to decide what you want to do, and if you want to put more housing on there, or if you want to put more treatment services for different populations, you can do that. So yes, it's being intentionally designed that way.
Thank you.
Great. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is really the discussion about what else goes on the campus there. I think that's really exciting. So, Martha, do you have anything before I move on? I want to give
No,
you a
I'm just
chance.
glad we're moving ahead with this.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been informational only update. Thank you, Cindy, very much. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Chair, the Mental Health and Addictions Council, staffed by Health, Housing, and Human Development, currently has one opening on their commission due to term expirations. 21 members are allowed with 3-year terms. Recruitment opened to the public in December of 2024 and closed in January of 2025. Through the recruitment process, 7 applications were received and 1 is recommended for appointment. The recommendation is as follows. Mary Ann Andrews to a first term ending 2028. The board could select other candidates or require further recruitment, Mr. Chair.
All right. Questions, colleagues?
Chair, I move that we approve the appointment of Mary Ann Andrews to the Mental Health and Addiction Council Commission.
Second.
All right. Commissioner West has moved to approve the appointment of Mary Ann Andrews to the Mental Health and Addiction Council. Commissioner Salvis has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll for us?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye. Thank
Motion
you.
passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Gary, what is next?
Thank you. Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, April 24th at 10 a.m. You have consent agenda items for the Housing Authority, Clackamas County, North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, and the Development Agency. As usual, if you have a question on any of these items, would you please let me know prior to Thursday so I may have the appropriate staff in the room to answer your questions if you do. You will have a board discussion item on selecting your finalists for the County Commissioner Position 4 vacancy. We'll do this as a board discussion item near the end of your agenda. As I've discussed with you privately, Commissioners, I ask if you would please give to me by the end of tomorrow your individual lists of who you'd like to see as the top candidates, and then I will see who is consistent on all of your lists and bring that data for you on Thursday, just to save a little time. You'll still have a full public discussion on Thursday. We'll have flip charts in the room to help you as you narrow it down. I'm suggesting top five, but it's your choice. If you have a top 3, if you have a top 10, just your top candidates, and then I will help categorize that data for you for Thursday, and then, of course, you'll have the discussion then. But if that's helpful, I'll call you on the phone, call me, and I'll write it down by the end of the day tomorrow so I can help you for the Thursday discussion. But that is it for your Thursday business meeting. If you have any questions on anything for the business meeting agenda, please let me know prior to Thursday, and I'm happy to assist. Do you have any questions now on anything that I can answer at this point? For Thursday's business meeting? Okay, thank you. Next, Commissioner West would like to discuss recovery policies in a care continuum framework. And Commissioner West provided a memo for you that's in your packet. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Gary. So, as you guys all know, Chair Roberts and I have been very involved with the Supportive Housing Services task force to try to right the ship and really fix some of the issues that we're having around SHS funding, public trust, and work with the region. So it's been a lot of work, and we talk a lot about like what we're going to go do an audit, or now we're calling it not an audit. They don't want to call it an audit, but it's complicated. They want to call it a review, system review, or and we'll get into that. But as I was thinking about like, well, what does our care continuum look like in Clackamas County and other places where I feel like it's more successful, that's informed by a recovery-oriented system of care? And what could be the standard in which we're judging an audit against? So where do we have these gaps? Here's what a care continuum ideally could look like. And I'm not saying what I created in this document is the end-all be-all of Clackamas County, or we must do all these things, or but I thought it would give us a good framework on how to have this holistic approach to get people the care they need, no matter where they're at in that care continuum. And it's not all inclusive. It's not necessarily, it's a draft even, it's kind of a working document. But I wanted it to be included in the regional conversation because right now we just have a patchwork of providers that maybe do or do not talk to each other, but there's no cohesive system within that the whole region uses. And so I wanted to start having that conversation about what does housing look like with recovery, with treatment, within a full care continuum, and what do warm handoffs look like? What do systems that communicate well look like? What are the different things that we maybe should be offering to the different populations that we're serving based on their individual needs? And how do we tailor this a little bit? And so I created this document, and I'm curious what parts may resonate with you as my fellow commissioners. How I guess a lot of this, and I don't guess, I know a lot of this we're already doing in Clackamas County. Not all of it we're doing. Some of it's aspirational, and how I think we should approach this. What elements are we missing? What can we maybe plan for in the future? And I'm trying to find that kind of balanced, functional, coordinated system that is rooted in the in kind of the policy directives that we've already given, rooted in our resolution that we passed, our summit, all the work we're doing with H3S, stuff with the recovery campus. We just heard from Cindy on that. And so it kind of takes our core philosophy and it puts a system together that maybe can help spur a further conversation than what we've only been hearing maybe out of Portland and out of Multnomah County. And I don't know, Chair, like even yesterday at the SHS meeting, it seemed to be, there were a few dominant voices in the room that seemed to be more proponents of the status quo, wanting a little bit of my perception, some watered down accountability with how we move forward with some transparency and audit work. Myself and Commissioner Singleton did kind of, we didn't mean to, kind of different brain dumps and journaling kind of processes. Mine came up with this. Hers was much more around housing specifically, and it was a little bit different framework than what mine is. I don't think they're in conflict, but they were just a little different. But I was a little concerned about yesterday's meeting. I'm a little concerned with the direction that the SHS task force is going in. I want this to be productive. I want us to be able to right size the SHS funding source. I want us to rebuild trust with the community, which we woefully lack right now. But I am anxious about our ability to do that. So I don't know if you guys want to adopt or have your thoughts on this framework about how we proceed forward. I don't know if the board wants to say, yeah, we want this to be a framework that we accept officially in Clackamas County as aspirational and something that we can judge against. I don't know, I'll open up to your guys' thoughts. I thought we should have a discussion since it is a memo that I produced and formally put forward to the SHS work group that was highlighted in the work group. It's directly just from my desk, but I do think it's important enough that you guys all have a chance to comment on it and review it.
Great. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, actually, it looks like a really good roadmap. It's pretty extensive. In particular, you know, you have the medical background. I've got the workforce background, so of course I would really, from my point of specialty area, want to hone in on what that means. And I do know that we do expungement, and I do know that we have a program with our corrections folks, as well as people who are being released, and how we can more efficiently get people into training. A lot of times that can help while people are being incarcerated. Am I correct, Craig? But that would be an arena I'd really like to look in more closely, because I think you're right. Having an opportunity to progress and have an income and have a decent job will go a long way with all these other pieces that need to happen. And if I may ask, what are you saying that there's some ripples in the forest with SHS? Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right now, you have, in my opinion, Clackamas and Washington County that have had completely different outcomes than Multnomah County and the city of Portland. Their policy directions and the philosophy informing their policies are way different, but we're having the better outcomes. And then you have most of the cities in the region. There's a consortium of mayors that meet. I talked about that. City of Portland, Gresham, Beaverton, Sherwood, Lake Oswego, and Milwaukee. That's the mayor's group. That's like a subgroup of SHS that are talking. So you have Clackamas County, Washington County, this mayor's subgroup, and there's a lot of angst about not being accountable, not getting to the nuts and bolts of the government, of how we're going to have accountability and govern this. There's a lot of fear that the counties are going to have their funding reallocated to Portland, and so everything that we've built here in Clackamas County or Washington County that has been very successful, there's going to be a money grab to say, hey, well, you guys are fine, and the real problem is, you know, north of you a little bit. So they're going to have our taxpayers fund the issues in Portland, but we have no confidence that Portland and Multnomah County are going to be able to govern their way and set up systems that are effective. And so even just starting the conversation to find common ground to say, okay, Multnomah County, how can we be better partners? You got to be honest about what a good system looks like. You have to go back to the basics. Like, what is your philosophy that's been informing all this work you've been doing? And then what are the outcomes with that philosophy that you've been using? So, but when I met with Commissioner Pam Treese yesterday, and we talked a lot about this yesterday. Lynn Peterson, Metro President, all the mayors are dialoguing with Clackamas County right now, because we're afraid that there's not going to be a big enough pivot or shift with how things are being done in the status quo. We won't have the accountability. We won't win the public over. And in just a few years, we'll have to be scaling all this down. And what do we do if SHS totally goes away and it all falls off a cliff? There's a sense of urgency and anxiousness with, I think, Washington, Clackamas, and most of the mayors with where we're going with this. And we have asked for a full, robust system review or analysis of what is going on, including the financial and the performance of it, and the performance analysis, going all the way back to the beginning of SHS, because the voters expected that. It never happened, and we're now seeing some of the conversations, Chair, I believe yesterday, we're wanting to water that down a little bit and kind of, just do like what they call a gaps analysis. And it just seemed like a lack of desire to have accountability. Oh, we already know what's wrong. Or they would say, we already know what's wrong. We're just going to hear things we already know. But they persistently fail. Look at the news last week. We have 15,000 plus additional homeless people living on the streets. It was 6. KGW came out with a report after they started doing a little bit more detailed reporting that it's more than double than they thought or originally reported to the public. That's the message that got out from KGW last week. They just found 3 bodies dead in the Willamette River this last week. You have more additional budget shortfalls and inability to meet those needs. And then the Portland big recovery center or shelter center they're about to open is now at least an additional year delayed. That's the news just from last week in Multnomah County. And so as this continues to pile on, we're playing catch up with the messaging. And I just am trying to say, here's a balanced, reasonable, aspirational framework that maybe we can all have as a standard and then go from there. But they don't really that seems to be lacking. There is some common ground with Multnomah County. There are things where we're like, yeah, we could fix that. There's nibbling around the edges. But structurally, to fix this, like to make the pivot, I'm anxious and concerned that we want to get there. Like we are fighting and working our behinds off to get there. I just don't know. And Chair, you're in the room. Like, I don't know what happens if we don't, and it's catastrophic. And so we're trying to bring that voice. We're trying to bring that perspective. It's an honor to co-chair this with Lynn to do that. And this was the recent, that's also why I sat down and just let's just show the region what a care continuum looks like and what that framework looks like and what holistic look is. It was also sat down with our staff and you're like, yep, we do this and we do that and we do this and we could do better here. And that's aspirational, maybe one day when we have funding. And so it was more like we judged ourselves against this, and not a very specific, but casually just said, hey, where are we at? And it allowed us to kind of take a pulse of things within Clackamas County. We're doing really good. But I am concerned about the direction, with this happening right now, but I am concerned about the direction of SHS.
So can I do a follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
So what you're seeing is a misalignment of policy and a lack of actual data collection. Just to put
Part
it
of
in a
it's a
nutshell.
lack of data and agreement on what people will be able to report to use the data. It's been almost 4 years now. We still don't have the data being put forward. We have resistance from other county partners. We don't have accountability, so one county can fail and bring down the whole region or system. There's no balanced approach to addressing that. There's a number of things that are causing issues, and you think you have political power, right? There's so much political power in Portland and Multnomah County. It's really hard to get any kind of new ideas or to break the stranglehold that's on that thought process in Multnomah County and Portland to adjust and even have enough introspection to say, hey, what's replicable and working, and let's just do that. But they want to, it's hard to get those conversations to pivot away from where they're at.
So there's been no repository of actual data and information, is that correct? Is
I
that what you're
believe
saying?
we are starting to turn over data in Clackamas County. We have an agreement with Metro to try to get some of that data. I don't believe it's fully done yet within the region.
Commissioner Salvis.
Yeah, well, you probably heard me say this not too long ago, but I like what you got here, Ben, but I see it as a continuum, really, that a system, or advocating for a system. And you heard me say this before. I really believe that there is a need to have the state involved at a greater level. And I'm concerned about the local politics blemishing, or muddying the realities a little bit. And I think a lot of people are truly trying to grapple with this and do the right things. However, I think there's also, as human nature, people don't want to change. They get accustomed to something, and I think there's people getting probably accustomed to the revenue streams and providing the services. And I'm concerned that we're treating the symptoms, we're not treating the core issue overall. And so these are broad comments. I certainly think that knowing what the gaps are, or a gap analysis is probably a worthy exercise. And I know that we here in Clackamas County are working to fill that. But it's going to take a lot of resources, and some of these things are going to take either legislation or changes at the state level to make happen correctly, especially when you talk about those with severe learning disabilities or mental health challenges when it comes to whatever the current laws are that help restrict our ability to treat folks. So, what's unusual about this is that these monies, again, the story, we've got 6 years left, right, of these monies, and our success or not could, influence, what happens, thereafter. But there's still a statewide demand for these kinds of services, right? It's not just limited to us. And certainly there's intra-migration, people that are moving from other parts of the state to get services here in the Portland. That's historic. That's not unique. And maybe this SHS amplified that to some degree. But I would, the other thing I want to say before I kind of make a recommendation, but the other thing I'm really seeing as far as this 15,000 or the new inflow or the new counts is I'd like to know how much of that is migration, how much of that is economic displacement, right? People are being, economically driven to the streets because they can't afford rents, is kind of understanding how much of that is drug addiction, how much of that is whatever it may be. So, and I think some kind of detailed study steered by professionals in this that are not financially engaged, if you will, locally. They're not receiving the dollars, whether that's the county or it's nonprofits or whatever. 'Cause I think there is some reliance on there for our livelihoods, if you want to call it that, whether it's, I'm not saying it's our livelihood per se, but, people really care. I get that, and they're providing the services, but I think that there really is a call for a greater development of a system, continuum, whatever you want to call it, and at a higher level that is statewide, and a funding stream that is not relying on the taxpayers, right? To some degree, as far as renewing a measure or whatnot. But I'm just concerned that, and you'll hear me say this later on about some of our state agencies, that, that doesn't necessarily mean that state agencies are all working efficiently and correctly and so on. So there's always troubles in paradise everywhere, if you want to call it paradise. So my recommendation is, even though I know that's not what's on the table, and I know this structure is, is having a greater statewide involvement and regional involvement with experts on, if we were to build a system in this state, what would it look like? That meets all these needs, that recognizes, what would it look like? And start brainstorming. And I'm sure there's some people here locally in our region that have the experiences and knowledge that could input that, but I think when the current makeup, I see it as too political in nature. And I'm not sure what's gonna come of that when the voices of those who are, again, relying upon these revenue streams are not gonna be perhaps as objective as those who are more, whether they're clinicians or whether they are experts at a higher level that are not relying upon local funds, independent minds to come together and say, what should it be? What should the system look like? A lot said, but I think I got my point across.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Savas. Just a couple comments. First of all, thanks for the hard work. Commissioner West is right. We were there at a meeting yesterday, and one of the big things I think that the public has this right to know is since the passage of this measure, what have we done with those dollars? And I think that's the big question. And really, what are some key performance issues that really show our success, or where do we need to shift gears in order to meet the different needs? And so I think when I kind of listen to the different presenters and what I consider some of the challenges that face us as a county and some of these numbers, the one issue on your report here is really secured psychiatric care for severely mentally ill, which to me is a huge issue. I have looked at the numbers before based on our population, and for us to have that alone would really kind of be a challenge. And that's where I think having maybe a partnership with Washington County, because that is really a dire need. And I think that really excited that we could have some discussions and how that we might be able to partner with a hospital or whatever to really kind of meet that need. And that's where really get into this kind of sequential mapping to kind of see how the system flows and where people come in and where they go out, because we have such a variety of populations we're trying to serve: foster kids, those people that are on the edge of homelessness, keeping those people in housing. And then the other thing that, Martha, you brought up too, which I think is really essential, is really jobs and education. And one of the big things, formerly at the sheriff's office, we were really proud that we gave more GEDs away than the college did. So in a recovery campus, is really trying to transition, also helping folks get their education that can help make living wage jobs and really connect those people in. And then also making sure that we're really addressing like low-level offenders that can get that help. And so I think it's really exciting. I think this is a great start to really, as I mentioned with Cindy, I'm really looking forward to kind of this visionary process of what are all the things that are going to be on that campus. And I also was recently spoke with a commissioner in Lane County and talked to her about some of the where I would like to see is a crisis response team for those struggling with mental illness and addiction. And I think that that's one of those things that we might not be able to afford it now, but how can we kind of move forward and put that in our game plan to accomplish? So Commissioner West, I saw you had a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Really quickly, Commissioner Savas, to your comments, Metro just did a special meeting on a study that was released that talked about a little bit of what you just asked about. There was a robust study that was that it talked about like what were some of the causation factors that they're seeing, and you've heard me say this over the last 2 years. It really seemed to mirror also the study that came out of UCLA and Cal Poly, that there's a large intersection with trauma, behavioral health, and substance abuse disorder with a lot of this population that continues to be persistent. It's a public meeting. You can look at the Metro. They came and presented on the study's findings that might answer some of your questions. Look at that study. I think there's a lot of valuable information for that. Not that we don't need more data, but I don't know if you were aware of that. I would encourage you guys to watch that meeting and the findings that they presented in that study. I don't know what we want to do with this framework. We could do nothing. And you can say, thank you, Ben. We could work with Mary and her team and say, let's make this a living document and really show what a robust care continuum looks like. Can you add things to it, take away, show where we're good, show where we're aspirational, and use it like a roadmap? And have it be a living document, show to the public, look what we're trying to do. Because unlike what's coming out of SHS, this, I think, listens to the public. Martha, there is a section in here specifically on workforce issues and reentry programs. Chair Roberts, you're a former sheriff, and the work that you did, it talks about our partnership with law enforcement as a critical asset and tool. It talks about, these things about safe, clean, livable spaces. It talks about the appropriate housing that's necessary where somebody's at in their recovery pathway, removing those barriers. It brings in the treatment, it brings in the recovery, it has housing throughout of it, it wants to get people into PSH. So for me, it's like at least something for us to build off of and to use as a roadmap. Maybe I mean, Mary's got way smarter people than me on her team. So maybe Mary can say, hey, we like this bin, but here's where we're excelling. It's in green. Here's where we never thought of, or maybe we like to get there. Here's some innovative things we're hearing that are best practices, and maybe use it as our own framework. It is what's been presented to Metro. I hope it doesn't fall on deaf ears. I got good response back from a lot of people there, but I don't know. How do you guys want to use it?
Yeah, Commissioner Salvis had a comment.
Well, I'll say it a little bit differently this time, I think. So I see it as a system. I do see it as a plan. I think overall, again, a continuum. I guess at the end of the day, to make something happen, it's going to be, what is stable and adequate funding look like for something like this, right? And the fact that if the population is growing and the resources right now are fixed to this SHS, which isn't enough to do, right? There's just not enough money there. I think the problem is greater than the resources are available. And that's why I think the state needs to be involved and find a way. So I don't have any quarrel with this at all, right? I mean, I'm sure it can be worked, polished, added to, so forth. I think the framework's good. It's like, what do we do how do we do it? What's the next steps? If you talk about implementation, it's going to take state support. It's going to take more money, and we need a stable funding source. And right now, I think the panic is, people are seeing, the panic has been from day one, we got 10 years. And the funding ceases, right? So why build up a huge machine and all to know that the rug, the funding could be pulled from under us, whether it's by voters or whatnot. And same goes for some of the topics we'll be bringing up in the next work session on transportation. And my concern is that if the funding's pulled, where are we? And so we have the 6-year window, right? And I think to do something which this plan, right? To do all of that, we need more resources than we currently have to do it, right?
Yeah.
I think we'll all be honest about that. So how do we get there? And that's why I think the state should be involved. And there's a team, that's sponsored or supported by the governor's office to really tackle this big gnarly problem, social problem, to take it on and use key people around the state that can help assist and inform.
Can I respond to that?
Can I let
Yeah,
Martha
yeah.
respond? Martha?
Yeah, as you're talking about implementing this, I think one point I'd like to make, Paul, that in 10 years we could renew it. And if we had at least pieces of this in place, that would go a long way to showing the public that we're serious, number one, and number two, their money's been well spent. So I think at least, there's that option. I guess my second question is, who has been talking to the folks at the governor's office in a realistic way, as well as our legislative? We have a very large legislative state contingent that is very open to us. So what do they know about this? If we convene them as a group to sit with them and kind of have that conversation and go through this. So to me, if you're looking at the strategy to get funding, you've got to get the governor's ear and find out who the key person is on her staff that does that. I'll be talking to the workforce liaison because I am seeing some concerns in workforce at the state level, some lack of continuity and consistency across the whole workforce system. But I'm not going to get into that today because that's diverting from what you're talking about. But have you come up with a strategy or a convening strategy in order to make those conversations happen, number one? And, I know you're having these conversations with Metro, but given what you've been able to put together, we should be presenting this to the folks that have the power with the purse strings at this point, if not only on our behalf, but the rest of the behalf. But certainly, I think we are the leaders in this, thanks to you, Ben, I think, largely. And I think we need to be getting on this with, now, it may not be during session that this is the time to do it, is the other issue, but it might be something, I'm looking at our PGA person to plan immediately some kind of a conversation or a summit with those folks, with the powers that be, with a formal invocation to do this kind of a presentation and come up with a price tag for it. If we're serious about getting the dollars, then let's come up with a strategy to make that happen. So that would be my strong suggestion. And we don't have to wait for if the other folks want to come along, certainly invite them. Invite Washington, invite Multnomah, invite Metro, but I think we should be the drivers of this in terms if we really want to get the funding, because I think this is the strategy. This is really what should be a statewide prototype of how we manage these things, at least in our more populated areas, I would say. So we've got that in
I
process.
think just to kind of respond to that, I think that both Ben and I have been down to Salem. I know Trent's here and been working hard to really rally dollars for this and really trying to express the urgency and the need for it. So I think both of us have been working pretty hard on that. I'm sure there's some more we can do, also even on the federal level. But working closely with Trent and kind of his guidance helping us, so thank you, Trent. I know you're here today. But in the interest of time, I think, first of all, I think this is a great document. I would just look to my colleagues of this maybe as the first working document. I'd ask everybody to kind of submit their additions to it, and perhaps we meet with Cindy Becker and Mary and look at what we envision all the things on the campus being. So, Gary?
The next step is to schedule a policy session.
Okay.
So staff can contribute and offer you opinions and suggestions as you formalize this. Many of the things you say here is beyond Clackamas County, which you've talked about, and we need to engage how you'd like to have that larger conversation. So if you agree, we'll schedule a policy session for the next step.
I think we're in agreement. Ben, you?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Let's take it or leave it, flexible tool for us to use if you guys like it. I have approached Julia Brem Edwards, who is the chair of District 8 with AOC. I'm the vice chair on that group this year. We have had some conversations about doing the convening you're talking about to address the issue, where this will be the topic, where we bring local, regional, county commissioners and local electeds, state legislators go to District 8 and attend it. We can also bring in the federal government and maybe people from Health and Human Services with the feds or HUD to come in and also find some like collaborative solutions across all the different layers and spectrums of government, and maybe use District 8 as a platform to do that. So there has been some conversations about that. I think you guys are right that we can't go this alone. Maybe District 8 and maybe as the board should say, hey, we think that this is what we should do at District 8 this next upcoming meeting. And so I know Julie Brem Edwards and I will be collaborating on that. She's one of the Multnomah County commissioners, and she's doing a great job there. So I want to make that kind of just throw that out there so you guys know that maybe is an option for us to do what you're asking.
Great. Thank you. And I think, Gary, you've clear direction?
Yes, I have it. Yes, thank you.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on. In the interest of time, Gary, what's next?
Next is
Thank you,
Commissioner
by the way.
Communications for issues, and then you do have a policy session after that.
All right. Commissioner Communication, I'm going to start with you, Martha.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know, colleagues, I've been continuing to have some really interesting workforce conversations. I do want to let you know, and I think there's going to be some additions to our local workforce board in the near future. I don't have the details of that yet, but I will let you know as soon as possible. But one of the things Laura Edmonds and I did yesterday, because I work with her pretty consistently in what's been going on in the economic development world, we met with a group called WBTO, which ironically stands for We Boil the Ocean. And it isn't about boiling the ocean, it's about the impossibility of being told, well, you can't boil the ocean. And we met with Chris Holden, who is the founder of this organization, and their purpose is really looking at career and technical education. And they have done a regional needs analysis here for Clackamas County that identifies the gaps. And in particular, what they're concentrating on is taking a look at how we can improve career and technical education opportunities with our education folks across the county. And I found it very, very interesting to talk to them, because what they're really trying to do is to connect industries directly with the skills and abilities and education needs that they need to have business. So they are actively going out and meeting with businesses. They are actively doing needs assessments of what those are. They are moving it back to the local level, and specifically are going to be working on rural education, they work with our education service district, multiple education service districts across the state. They want to work with our ESD. They are working with the STEM programs and all you know, and as you know, that's, science, technology, education across the state. And they're looking to increase the capacity to transform local schools into a career and technical education powerhouse. So more than equipment, repair, and instructor training, they provide insights and collaborative frameworks that align CTE programs to student career opportunities. And why is this important? Well, I learned about it a number of years ago when I had the opportunity to visit Sheffield in England, where they have implemented a process and a study site that actually allows students direct access to the business community and jobs as they are actually on site, getting the education to develop their skill sets. And their particular goal is to work with our school systems and our CTE, particularly the rural ones who don't seem to have, like the Cambys, the Malalas, the Estacadas, they don't necessarily have the same depth and breadth of opportunities as like the Lake Oswego's and the Westlands, but they want to provide as a pipeline of qualified entry-level candidates eager to bring skills you need on day one. It was pretty fascinating. Their job is to revolutionize how we actually work with workforce readiness, how to get that education, how to work with our manufacturers in the industry. And they are supportive, they're flexible, they get equipment for folks, and I think it's going to be a real opportunity to move career and technical education for our county in particular, for youth, and to, again, align with our businesses with their policy needs. So I want to give thanks to Laura Edmonds for pulling that together for me. She is going to be going to a meeting with the Oregon Business and Industries. I unfortunately am not going to be here to do that, but they're going to be talking about these issues and particularly what our manufacturers need. But that is really the key to workforce. Don't do it in a vacuum. Don't have your school systems do it in a vacuum. Look at the clusters and the businesses you have here, directly contact them, find out what their education needs are and what their workforce needs are, and then start to tailor those folks so you get that pipeline going in a really, really positive way. And I could probably talk about this for hours because it's kind of something I've really been interested in for a while. And I think it happened because I went to the OMIC, which is out in Scappoose, which is the Sheffield model. Actually, that was brought from England to there, and I keep trying to, again, I'm going to be talking to the governor's workforce person, because if I was going to do workforce and I had my magic wand at that level, I'd be making sure that those kinds of centers of excellence, that's in Scappoose, were hubs across the entire state. They're done They're done in conjunction with the community colleges get involved and the local school districts get involved as well. And they are highly successful. And the best thing I ever did, I got some heat for that. Well, what are you going to England for? And I said, you wait and see what I bring back from England. And by God, we did. And we've got one hub. And I think before I'm done, I hope I can pound the drum to make that more of a statewide priority for efficiency and workforce, to bring some consistency to a system that in my mind seems to be very not aligned as well as it could be for the citizens of the state. So that's what I got today.
All right, thank you, Martha. Commissioner Salvis?
I'm just going to save my comments for the work session we got here in just a few minutes.
Commissioner West has to take off. Do you
Yeah,
want
I have to run to a meeting, but I've said my piece, I think, today with all the SHS stuff, yeah.
And I
Thank
have
you.
to.
All right. All right. Well, since we do have the policy session coming up, I'm going to go ahead and hold my comments. So if there's no other matters, this concludes today's administrative issues and updates. We'll now begin our first and only policy session of the day. Gary, would you introduce that for us, please?
Yes, Chair. This next policy session is State Transportation Funding Update and Legislative Analysis. Our staff from Public and Government Affairs and Transportation and Development will present Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager, sorry. Not yet, Trent. All right. This is an informational update, but there's a lot to talk about, so go ahead, please.
Good
kick it
morning,
off.
you two.
Morning. Thank you so much. So I just want to kind of go back in time and recall the fact on April 8th, Public and Government Affairs staff provided a briefing on the recent proposed transportation funding framework. This is known as TRIP. Just remember, this information is a starting point in the discussion. No bill language has been published yet. And that framework is in your packet as attachment A. Some things that when you assess these kinds of things, we thought it was important to have a discussion and kind of highlight, like with any package, it may satisfy some, but maybe not all the requirements that we and others may have desired. But I thought it was important to highlight a couple things. One of which for Clackamas County, this funding package as proposed, when it's fully funded in 7 years, if it does get approved, results in about $25 million of additional annual funding. That's dedicated funding for needed urban and rural road improvements in and around the county. Secondly, the package does include a pretty seismic shift. It's funny because these improvements are seismic related to the Abernathy Bridge project, where they had talked about utilizing tolling and other mechanisms for a number of years. Essentially, this package would insert funding into that to move past the tolling discussion for that particular bridge that's currently under construction. Like I said, as with any framework, it meets some but not all. And as this framework advances to a bill, more information will come forward. We have questions that are still to be answered. There are a number of, if you look at the package information, there are a number of off-the-top cuts that go to fund a number of projects we want to do a deeper dive into to see where and how those get funded and what the criteria is for local jurisdictions to qualify for those, such as the Great Streets Program, et cetera. But more importantly, Commissioner Savas is participating and scheduled to go down to Salem and participate in lobby days for the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, JPAC. And so we felt it was important to come back today and share with you, kind of rekindle and review priorities you and others around the region have had about transportation and how this package aligns with that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Trent to kind of roll through those elements.
Thank you very much. Dan's spot on. This package is a starting place. It is a framework. We're expecting bill language soon. So I always like to say the devil's in the details from concept to implementation. The language could look identical to the framework. It could look different because there has been lobbying efforts from the time this came out and the bill's not yet published. And there will be more changes. And so this is a evolving process. And I just want us to rest with that for a little bit because we don't have to make a firm decision today because there will be more opportunities to talk about it. However, since the framework has come out, every jurisdiction in the state, every transportation thought partner that goes into Salem is asked, where do you stand with the current package as proposed? Generally speaking, the proposal matches with what you asked the county to pursue in our state agenda. It generally matches with the JPAC principles that JPAC approved last fall, and it generally aligns with the values and outcomes that the county shared its logo with our city partners here in the county. There's a lot of alignment with those 3 different documents that I've been using sort of as my North Star when I'm responding to questions about this. However, what I will say is where I'm unable to answer questions for legislators is really around 2 issues. Number one is that the current proposal, the TRIP proposal, I wish they would pick a different acronym. The current proposal does fund a portion of I-205 with non-tolled revenue. It does not fund the entirety of the bottleneck project that was envisioned and discussed in House Bill 2017. And so I could use direction from you on how you would like me to continue to advocate for the remainder of that project, which is an additional $800 million proposed. So that's a lot of money. The other side of this, the question that I get a lot is, we are a transit provider, and there are other transit providers in the county. The transit increase proposed in the TRIP is relatively modest if you ask any transit provider in the state. And so we are asked often, are we comfortable with that amount, or would we like to join efforts to, encourage that number to go up? Those are really the two questions that I get and could use direction from you. So I'm in listening mode today to hear from you on how you'd like us to proceed.
Commissioner Savas, I know you're going to.
So quickly, before I get into my comments, Trent, could you just for clarity, you mentioned your guiding three documents are what now?
It is the Clackamas County's legislative agenda. That's my North Star. That's Trent's North Star. That's what y'all have approved for me to go and do and get. And there's some language on the bottom of the first page of our packet here. That's what I look to. But broadly, I've been in partnership with our cities who we've all jointly signed or put our logo on a values and outcomes document that a transportation package could do or should do this. And then also the JPAC priorities, which Clackamas County is a part of through Commissioner Savas's representation on JPAC. And so that was approved, I think it was September, October of last year. And so I am part of a regional lobby group, and we have been working together with a very high-level message of transportation package is good. We have needs in the region and the state. We would like to see something move forward. That has been the general message from the JPAC priorities.
Okay. Thank you, Trent, for clarifying that. So, colleagues, I just want to kind of give my overall perspective. And I guess that from someone who's been in this work, transportation stuff for a long time, and in my prior role before ever being a county commissioner at C4, I've watched and seen what regional means in this tri-county area, right? And when we go to whether the state legislature or we go to the Washington D.C. and we advocate as one voice, and that principle, Dan, Trent, others, we've all been there. We all gone there, abiding by the rules, speaking with one regional voice, and one of our partners will go off script and be less regional than originally promised. And it's created an environment in which I think that sometimes it's, I feel a little foolish for playing by the rules and being a good partner because, in hope that there would be a payoff and some dividend, a dividend being, a project or a need or an issue that's important to Clackamas County that's in our legislative agenda, whether it's state or federal. Two of those, one of those in particular is the 205 project. So I thought I would tell a story here, and Craig, you especially, I want to, when Chair Roberts was the sheriff years ago, I was trying to respond to him and the outcry of people, whether it's Tualatin, Borland Roads, Stafford, Eck Road, all the people crying out about the traffic and the accidents that are happening on Stafford Road. And I heard that almost day one from being a county commissioner about that, people appealing to me and having that transportation responsibility. I probably heard it more than the rest of my colleagues. But Sheriff Roberts, I asked Sheriff Roberts at the time, hey, would you come join me at Athey Creek? I'm putting on a forum to hear from those neighbors because they were pretty upset. They felt as though nothing was happening, right? And, I want to thank Sheriff Roberts for going out there with his staff, and we presented and we heard directly from those people in the Lake Oswego, West Lynn, that area, Stafford, Wilsonville area about all those concerns. And it's been safety oriented from at least from my perspective for a long, long time. So I see this as a safety project. We talk about at our JPAC meetings, and we talk about at the state level how important safety is as one of the pillars of why we do what we do in transportation. But Chair Roberts, I guess my question is, if I read the tea leaves right now, there is no funding in the works to complete this bottleneck project, which is relating, again, it's not going to alleviate our concerns about safety, and tolling's not on the table right now for that, so therefore that challenge, that safety issue would be exacerbated if tolling was on the table because there'd be even more diversion. So I just asked my colleagues today, do we still want to advocate for I-205 for repairing that bottleneck? If not, then then I'm not saying today, maybe when we do our retreat, we can talk about what our priorities ought to be. But for right now, in the immediate future, should we be conveying to our legislators that I-205 is still an important project for us? You know, I'm inclined to say yes. You know, I'll put my cards on the table right now. That is a safety project. I spoke to Representative Walters, who is right in the heart of that, and I'm hoping to speak to Senator Wagner here soon, that project's in the heart of it, to see if they, and when we talk about it, when I talked to her last week about the safety aspects of it, she's, you know, very receptive. So, but I think, you know, we need to message as a board, is it still a priority for us? So I don't want to put you on the spot. It's not a big question because it's already a priority right now. Do we want to keep it there? And I'm inclined to say yes. So Chair Roberts and Commissioner Schrader, I just asked, do you want to continue to advocate for that throughout this legislative session?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm so inclined to, I mean, I always like to hear from Dan and kind of, you're obviously on the front lines and have that big picture. I mean, can you kind of elaborate on kind of what you see? Are these in alignment with what you believe are the priorities, or do you see other ones?
I-205 has been a priority for the Board of County Commissioners for the last 4 years. I'm just throwing a
10?
number, whatever the number is. I mean, it's been a priority for some long period of time. There's been a lot of discussion on how you deliver the project. And there's all been a very in-depth discussion around how it's delivered. If it's delivered under the tolling model, what the negative impacts are for that. If it's not delivered under the tolling model, what does that look like? Those are some of the fundamental things that we really want to do a deeper dive into, the questions we have. Because you'll notice in the package, there isn't a lot of money out there. There aren't a lot of prior, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the prior transportation funding packages have a lot of capital specificity on projects. So it's like, we want to fund this project and this project and this project. That isn't here. A lot of this is operations. And so my question that I have, and that we've been kind of mulling around, is how is ODOT looking to change their discussion with local jurisdictions around large-scale capital construction? We've heard, and that could range everywhere from, hey, you know what, are you interested in doing tolling in your region? And if you are, let's have a talk. Maybe we'll fund it that way. Does it mean more local money, because we're getting more local money now? So is it local money that gets from our coffers that goes into one of their projects? Those are questions that are out there. I know that 205 is a priority. I know that 205 is a need. I have concerns about, how it gets delivered with the tolling on it, because it has a lot of negative impacts to the surrounding area. We are doing everything we can do to kind of improve those corridors. Stafford Road, we have 2 large projects queuing up, 65th and the one at Childs right now to deal. And those are current issues that get worse with tolling when it comes into place, but we're advancing those projects. And I'm sorry, but that's more questions than answers. Because there's again, this is a framework right now, and we've got to do a little deeper dive into what some of the answers to some of those questions might be. But I will tell you, the board has had that particular project as a priority for some time.
Yeah. So if I could just kind of build on this a little bit. So I want to talk about the pattern of regionalism, or the pattern of state packages. And I feel as though, I'll say betrayal is maybe a strong word, but, you know, we were asked in 2016, you know, to work together to figure out what large projects need to be done if there's a package. And that work continued into 2017 early, and we delivered our regional 3 projects, which was Highway 217 bottleneck, the 205 bottleneck, and the Rose Quarter bottleneck. And we all had different reasons probably for each of those. But what happened is that in 2017, lo and behold, unbeknownst to us, is that all those projects got funded in different ways, with the exception of ours. And ours was the only one of all, and not to mention all the other dozens and dozens of projects throughout the state of HB 2017 that got funded without tolling. So I think we've established, frankly, just to put an end to this tolling conversation, I think we established on all the work that ODOT did and we did as local governments, and looking at the impacts of this and the studies, that I think we determined that this particular section of I-205 is not a good, safe candidate for tolling because of the diversion aspects and the mitigation cost And I think the governor's office in so many words acknowledged that and basically realized that the cost of implementing the tolling project would be more than it would have a return in investment. So therefore, there's got to be another mechanism. And in all fairness, we got to ask ourselves about the current situation. How do we get here? I mean, think about I-205. It runs from I-5 in the state of Washington all the way down to, here in Wilsonville where it connects. And this is the only two-lane section, period. How'd that happen? Well, we're the weaker, smaller of the three counties. That's a reality. Why are we so far behind on transit? Why are we so far behind on a number of these projects? Because we're the smallest county, we're not as politically affluent. So that's a reality. So it's hard for me when we have identified this, I've worked hard with the state, with the Joint Transportation Committee, with a number of people throughout the state to work on this package in faith and hope that we would find a way to do this. I asked a simple question, how many cents would it take, on a gallon to build the 205 project? And I still don't have an answer, and there's obviously not a will to do that. So I'll leave it there. I'll make the presumption here that 205 is still our project that we will advocate for. The other one I want to talk about is transit, and then kind of open it up for thoughts. And so we have, again, going back to that pattern or that lack of regionalism, really spreading the love, we have the greatest, highest population in the state of Oregon of people that are not being served by transit, call it transit deserts, the highest in the state, by far. There's not even anyone close. There's not even a close second. And that's not an accident either. And the other accident that we have that's a reality of trying to adjust that over the years for decades independently is we have the highest number of called PTSPs, public transit service providers, in the state from any one county. And we are one of them. Our H3S staff, I see a couple of those folks in the back of the room are part of that. And they've been working hard to try to get what was conceived in HB 2017 as the STIF funds, which was to add transit where there is no transit. That's how some legislators voted for it. The only reason they voted for this package was, as far as transit, was to get more service in areas and address areas where there was no service. And legislators asked for that, and it was delivered. However, the rules changed. And the rules changed, so now there's a more of emphasis that out of 42 qualified entities that the state identifies, we are experiencing, or they are, some of them, a small, 3 or 4 of them are experiencing financial struggles, and one of them is in the paper as of yesterday about TriMet, and I'll circulate that article. It's in the Pamplin media. About their struggles. Nonetheless, we have a window of opportunity here to advocate for a fix. I think it's a structural one for a fix. It's not, there might be some personality or some upset. I acknowledge that, that's out there. But to me, it's a structural issue that's really caused really the symptoms of maybe some unhappiness or some trust issues among some of the agencies. But we got a responsibility to our constituents at the end of the day. That's our responsibility, is to do that. And, as we know, transit serves people that either cannot drive or have physical ailments or issues, they need lift service. There's a number of things that transit provides. We're not talking light rail, we're not talking, fancy, expensive projects. We're talking basic service. And Canby started their own agency. Sandy started their own agency. South Clackamas, Malal area started their own agency. Wilsonville. So there's a need out there, and people are happy with the service in those rural areas for the most part, with the exception that Wilsonville is not rural, but they're in rural areas where people would think that, oh no, people wouldn't want that or need that. So the two things that are missing out of this package are really the transit fix, not the amount of money per se, but the transit fix. I think I call it structural, and the 205 project. That's my issue, and that's the only thing I'm really prepared to lobby for. Until then, I don't want to just throw more money at a system and a structure that we lose. Historically, decades of commissioners well before me that battled at the regional tables, and we don't get the love. This is a dynamic that unless we kind of try to make a change, and leverage this, because if we don't do it now, I'm sorry, but the next legislative package is 8 to 10 years away. There's no
If I
time to
might-
wait. There's no time to wait.
Might interject, I know Martha had a comment. Martha?
Yeah, I just have a question, because again, being here for quite a while, we had always really focused solely on the Sunrise Corridor. And it wasn't until we had a change in commission, it was Commissioner Ludlow, it was Commissioner Smith for the first go-around who really started to bring I-205 to the core, to the thing. So I guess my question has always been, so we are at the same level of commitment to both projects, or are we, I guess what I'm wondering is, should we concentrate on the Sunrise, which was the original project that we had always done? And I-205 is something that I think is necessary, but are you saying we should do both together at this point? And is that realistic to, I'm kind of being a heretic here, is that realistic to expect both at this point? And the Sunrise, like I said, in the past had always been the sole, piece that we had been focused on because of the growth that's happening out there and the potential for economic development. And I-205 is more of a fix for mobility and potential development. I know that there's some people in Stafford think that's going to open up that area, but who knows? So I don't know, Paul, what do you think? I mean, what is it one or both, or?
Well, that's why I'm asking, that's why I'm kind of asking the question. I mean, I'm a big advocate of the Sunrise. I think
Yeah, I
the
know.
Sunrise not only helps our citizens, it aligns with the governor's goals of more housing, economic development. I mean, there's a number of aspects that project helps us, right? I mean, it helps our citizens, our growth, our patterns of growth. So there's a big opportunity with the Sunrise Corridor. So I still see that in my own mind, Paul's mind, as a priority, but I'm always respecting what the board really feels. To me, the 205 challenge is a state issue. It's a state facility. There's
Yeah,
no economic
right.
development to it. I mean, you could argue maybe there's some here and there as a result of diversion or not. But it's a state responsibility, it's a safety issue. So Sunrise has got safety elements that are really, really important, and they're a lot more close neighborhoods, right? I mean, the 205 doesn't run through the neighborhoods, it's the spillage and the people that are diverting that run in through those neighborhoods that are causing the safety issues. But still, I've answered your question, Martha.
I'm looking at Trent, he's looking like,
Yeah.
you want to say something? I mean,
If I might just kind of suggest, also in the interest of time, I mean, what I'm hearing is really the 2025 transportation package, as I see listed, is really the priorities. Now, I see you wanting confirmation that 205 is still a priority. I believe that is. So unless somebody objects, I think we continue to move forward. Gary, do you have any other comments on this?
I-205 has been on the board's legislative priorities for 13 years. Please don't make that decision right now off the cuff. Wait till you have a full board present, perhaps at your strategic planning retreat. It's on your current agenda. Please don't change horses midstream. Let's finish a legislative agenda, then you can have that discussion, please.
yeah, I
Thank you.
know, and I'm not trying to change in midstream. I'm just saying, what is one more is like for future development, the other one is kind of maintenance, operations, making sure that the capacity is still there. So,
if I-
And so
kind of modernization, yeah.
And so today is really information only. I appreciate you bringing this before us, and it stimulates a lot of conversation about the priorities, and following up with Gary, it's a good retreat discussion. So with that being said, I think
Well, Chair, just one clarification. I think, there is some part that's more informational, but I think that having some guidance for us when, I think as Trent put it, and Trent raised his hand there too, we're being asked, right, do we support this package? And if we don't support it, why, or what it may be? And I'm trying to point out two critical issues that we're battling on. Trent has been working faithfully, long hours trying to resolve this one transit issue, and for example. So I just want to make sure we have the support from you all that we can convey those two messages on transit and 205 into the future. And Trent, I know you want to say something, so I think just continued guidance and support is what we need.
Thank you. I just want to leave a couple things. I don't want to leave a couple things unanswered that were shared there that I feel like I can help kind of close the door on for your purposes and maybe for a level of comfort. One at a time here. The Sunrise issue is a priority for Clackamas County. It is something that we are working on. The conclusion of the visioning concept work that DTD has been doing has been incrementally helpful, and we have a bill specific to Sunrise that has been introduced, and we're working really hard to give it a hearing. That is going to be separate from the transportation package. The leadership in Salem, at the Capitol, the Joint Committee chairs, and the presiding officers in both the House and the Senate do not want to have small projects or any projects besides the House Bill 2017 projects included in this package. And so they have really kept a tight fence around the package, to be specific, and Dan mentioned this earlier, operations and maintenance, or just general state highway fund preservation type of money. So it is very, very, very unlikely that little projects or other projects are going to wedge into that. So I just want to say that about Sunrise, we're working on it as well through like a different pathway, and we're working on it from like just one of the early portions or phases of what can be next based on the work from the visioning concept that has been worked right now. And y'all will have more chances to talk about that, I believe, coming up. But we are working on that as well. So walking and chewing gum on Sunrise and 205. For 205, where I really need some clarity, not that it is or isn't a priority for us, but what do you want to do with phase 2? That's the question for me. If we want to continue advocating for the 6 mile widening, that is $800 million. That's, you've already said it in our last visit, that the transportation package proposal here is a lot of money. So legislators are apprehensive to add more to it. And when I bring up 205, phase 2, which I do because it's a part of our agenda, they ask me, well, how do you propose it be funded? So that is something that I need y'all to chew on. Do we want to go bigger? Is that something that, Clackamas County or our partners are ready to commit to? That's the sticky question around phase 2 of I-205. Not that it isn't a priority for the state, because that bottleneck is a problem that the state has recognized. It's one of the 3 major bottlenecks, has been for a long time. It is a safety issue, and we worked with ODOT, and we all sort of agreed, and the governor agreed, that tolling doesn't work right there. So that question has been answered. But how do we fund it, and how do we move it forward? It's too big. Phase 2 is too big for them to go and fund it with what they've built right now, with the political will of how big the package currently is. So unless there is local buy-in on more money in some capacity that they can support legislators to go get more money for, that's the sticky question that I need your help with in terms of this particular session, unless it were to be a smaller project in some way. And then on the transit issues, I really want to emphasize, I hear what Commissioner Savas is saying, and I need some maybe clarification on what is a structural fix. I know there's been some conversations around that. The package right now is a money package. It's not a structural package. And similar to small projects being kept out, legislators and the joint co-chairs are really also trying to keep any structural changes out of this. They want it to be just about money and accountability for ODOT. I want to be clear about that too. So structural fixes will have an uphill battle if that is what you're asking me to go and work on. We did have that meeting with the PTSPs a couple of weeks ago, and we gave them a choice to do, path as it currently is, or try to pursue a legislative pathway, and they chose the path as it currently is, keep negotiating there. They did not choose the legislative pathway. Not to say that there isn't stuff to work on there, so I want to be clear about that, but, so far it's complicated to add some of those pieces in there, and that's where I would like y'all to spend some time wrestling with those questions. What are the structural fixes that we think that we can tangibly ask for? What to do with phase 2 of I-205? And how do we want to advocate for that? Or is this a big enough package right now where we maybe want to let it rest and let it ride? So I don't have the answer for that. That's a policy question for y'all to let me know about. We don't have to answer it today. The language will come out soon enough. We can come back to it, but that's where I need clarity. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think what he's asking for, and I can explain a little bit more, we just need a little bit more patience. We have plenty of time because we're scheduled to have this done by noon, so we're way ahead of schedule, and it won't take that long anyhow. But to make it as simple as possible, I would describe it as the way it's currently structured, and the way with the funding crisis that we have and what they're asking for, they being, let's just say, the Oregon Transit Association, is, in the current package, it is at a 0.08 increase, right? What they're asking for is actually basically a 4 or 5-fold increase in the STIF funding with no structural change. And the problem is that instead of the STIF being used to expand service as originally intended in the legislature, it is now being used to backfill the general fund of some of the larger agencies that are financially struggling. One of them is in our area, right? TriMet. So because of that, the structural flaw in all this is, and there's language in writing that Trent and I have been working on that suggests that if there is more further trouble, financial troubles or struggles, that the funding that we currently get will be gone in 6 years or more, approximately. So it's in jeopardy. The funding stream could be pulled. So I don't see this as a long-term fix. It's a short-term fix. And if there's not the political will to come back with something and expedite perhaps a structural fix that guarantees that funding to us, because we are one of the PTSPs, right? Our staff, we do it here, as well as the rest of the area on behalf of our citizens who are paying out of their paycheck, right? That paycheck amount will increase potentially, if they get what they want, 5-fold increase, but yet no service. So that is, I will say, likely going to be a controversy, frankly, of sorts with the size of this package and some of the accountability issues that have been brought up by some of our state legislators. It's going to get messier as it gets along, but I think that we need to have an honorable rationale for moving forward and protect the people that receive the service today and not put ourselves in jeopardy with that funding being pulled away arbitrarily, as I see it.
I'll be honest with you, Trent. I'm struggling. And if I listen to you, the structural fit for transit is an uphill battle. I mean, I heard you say that.
At the legislature, yes.
And phase 2 is too big. It's $100 million, right, for expanding that. So I hear our priority, we don't want to change on the 205 project. And I think that I just feel like this is going to take more discussion. And I really kind of agree with Gary. I don't feel I'm at a point right now to really make that decision without really having more conversation with staff, more conversation with Gary, and really coming back. I wish I did, but when I look at this, I'm kind of getting mixed messages, and this is such a big decision, I don't want to make a mistake. So, Gary, do you have any other thoughts?
Yes, so I'll say it. This is, you're in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
Or anyone advocating for I-205 lane additions, because the community told you they don't want tolling. And in my opinion, the state's saying, if not tolling, then you tell us what else, and there really is no other option. And so you're in a box as an elected official who your public constituents say, no tolling. So they're not going to make this decision today, and with respect, the staff report should have been clear on that was a point for today. It's here but not clear. So we can bring this back again on the 205 question, but no matter what you say,
Right.
there's no win here, I'm sorry to say.
Right. So with
Once
that
the
being
bill gets
said,
developed, we can bring it back and we'll have more discussion.
Yep. Okay.
I would ask staff, I have asked the question, you heard me say it, how many cents per gallon will it take to complete I-205? It's a basic question. I don't know why it's been so painful to get a response, but, I'm solution-oriented, and if they're asking for a solution, then tell me what it is.
all right. Well, thank you. I'm sorry we weren't able to provide some more direction at this particular time.
Discussion was helpful.
Yeah, so I think, having Commissioner West here during that further discussion is real important too. So with that being said, thank you
So much.
both very much. So Gary, do we have anything else?
That is your last policy session. That's your last item for today.
All right. So on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, thank you all. Joined us today, and we are now adjourned.